Good morning, everybody, and thank you for coming. My name is Ranjini Prabhakar, and I am the Legislative Director of the Healthy Communities Program at Earth Justice, the nation's largest environmental law organization. I'm joined today by urban farmers from across the country, who you'll hear from later today. They are Dr. Janella Holmes, the CEO and President of the Kansas Black Farmers Association, Devon Wilson, the founder of Sunlight Gardens in Michigan, Hana Ma'aia, the Food Systems Manager at Soulfire Farm in New York, and Nika Forte from Heart and Soul People's Garden in Arizona. These farmers work in different climates and serve different communities and grow different crops. But they all know the difficulties that come with running a small local farm. They're all dealing with a rapidly changing climate while overhead costs have crept higher. And yet, they push through these struggles because they know the difference that they can make as farmers. They might be the people behind the apple slices in your kid's lunchbox, or the bouquet of flowers that hopefully you sent your mom last week. They're working tirelessly to produce nutritious food, steward their lands, and advocate for a safer, healthier planet. But that's a hard job, and no amount of work can outrun agriculture policy that is designed to work against them. This year's Farm Bill can change that story. To start, we need to maintain the climate guardrails on the nearly $20 billion that the Inflation Reduction Act provided for climate and agriculture. We also need to fund effective, proven programs like EQIP, the Environmental Quality Incentives Program, and CSP, the Conservation Stewardship Program. These efforts are already so popular, they can't meet demand. Despite increasing conservation spending in the IRA, farmer demand for funding continues to outstrip available funds. NRCS, this year alone, turned away 74% of EQIP applicants and 60% of CSP applicants. We can also authorize full funding for the Office of Urban Agriculture and Innovative Production, which, since 2018, has invested more than $50 million in urban agriculture projects. We can also fully fund sufficient SNAP benefits so American families can have fully stocked pantries and food on the table. Passing a farm bill that prioritizes farmers who are growing food sustainably and creating opportunity, that should be an obvious choice. But it isn't a foregone conclusion, so we called in our toughest advocates, our farmers. We're honored that they're here today, and we're so grateful to be joined by leaders in Congress who understand their value and share their vision. Among them is Representative Kim Schreier from Washington's 8th District. The Congresswoman is a fierce champion of climate issues in the ag sector and a devoted ally to small farmers. And it is my honor to introduce her today. So welcome, Representative Schreier.
Well, thank you all so much, and thank you for that kind introduction. And let me tell you that as a pediatrician, urban agriculture really speaks to my heart, in particular because of the role that it plays in schools. And I have heard about rooftop farms in New York City and exposing young children to nutritious farm foods will set the stage for a healthy life forever. So the other thing I wanted to add was that Crunch Pack is in my district. But I am thrilled to hear that there are small urban farms that are also doing the apples that get sliced up so children will eat them in their lunchboxes. Agriculture and family farms are central to our nation's long-term strength and our security. And in my district, central really to the economy and the character of Washington's 8th District. The family farm is the heart and soul of the apple capital of the world, and really to all of rural America and urban farms in America. This is a tradition of hard work and dedication and teamwork and a community that comes together. Over the past few years, I have invited farmers and orchardists, researchers, foresters, hunger advocates to roundtable discussions to talk about the Farm Bill, to have listening sessions, to make sure that I am being responsive and meeting the needs of my district. And the Farm Bill makes a huge impact on the lives of all of us. This is how we get food on our table. But there is increasing pressure in the face of a changing climate, and we need to support farmers, and I will emphasize small farmers in any way we can. So as the chair of the New Dems Caucus Farm Bill Task Force, and I am playing a leading role in working with my colleagues in both parties to help write and pass a bipartisan farm bill that supports the many, not just the few, and one that brings us together, that is additive rather than dividing us. Because whether we represent rural farms or big cities, the Farm Bill makes a huge impact on the lives of all of our constituents. Trade, climate, nutrition, rural development, research, forestry, so many other issues are covered in the scope of this bill, and of course, including urban agriculture and what that means for our cities. The bill is massive. And the challenge before Congress is to listen to our constituents and make sure that we are shaping a final bill that supports agricultural producers, protects nutrition programs, invests in rural communities, funds critical research, and supports investment in sustainable agriculture and forestry. And as you know, and as we just heard, there are far more growers and producers who want to participate in conservation and climate programs right now. They are oversubscribed. Farmers have told us how important it is to safeguard the provisions in the Inflation Reduction Act funding to help their bottom line and also do the right thing for the climate and also support the entire rural community in the unparalleled role that they can play in sequestering carbon and slowing the changing climate and dealing with these extreme weather events that are making farming ever more challenging and unpredictable. I'm talking about dairy farmers, again, not urban, but dairy farmers turning waste into fertilizer and working with their neighbors so that it happens locally. The use of cover crops for soil health, solar panels for greenhouses, which you do use, and for hydroponics, and then forest management, which is so important in my district, to keep our forests resilient and help avoid these catastrophic wildfires. So the Farm Bill needs to build on our historic investments in carbon sequestration and sustainable land management, and we need to ensure that these valuable programs that are particularly important for small farms and urban farms don't get gobbled up into commodity programs that generally support giant farms in just 12 of our 50 states. And that is not a farm bill that works for the many instead of the few. We are going to stand up for you. The funding of for our rural farmers means fewer inputs, less water demand, more revenue, better crops, better outputs, and improved crop resilience. And this is why we need to preserve these conservation programs in the Farm Bill. So I look forward to working together with you, learning more about urban agriculture, which does not happen in my district, but happens in yours, and working with both Republican and Democratic colleagues to get a bipartisan Farm Bill that will pass. Thank you.
We'll now hear from Representative Shelley Pingree.
Thank you so much. I know my colleague Kim had to leave, but I want to thank her for really laying out the parameters of what we're all here to support today. And I want to thank my other colleagues who have joined us, and I particularly want to thank the farmers who are going to speak as well. I know you've come from all over the country, but your voices are so critically important. People need to hear from you today about why these programs that we're talking about are so important. I noticed that Kim really emphasized the importance of all kinds of farming, urban farming, rural farming, the differences in agriculture in all of our states. and the importance that the Farm Bill is bipartisan. I just want to say a little bit about that. We're getting to the point now where after talking about the Farm Bill for the last couple of years, we're actually getting down to the negotiations. Next week, the Agriculture Committee, where some of us have a seat, will mark up the bill. And hopefully in a few days, we'll actually see the final language that the majority has put together. So we're anxious to do that. We're anxious to get to the negotiating phase. We've seen what's been produced on the Senate side in the majority party and love many of the things that are in that version of the bill. But as you know, this is a long, drawn-out process. Once we get into the negotiations, we'll have a markup in the House committee. They'll have a markup in the Senate committee. We'll come together and conference them, and hopefully we can have a bipartisan bill that suits all sides and meets all of our interests. But we're here today to talk about one particular piece, which is a significant amount of that bill. Sometimes people will sort of portray that as, oh, that's what the Democrats want in the Farm Bill. But let's face it, when I go home to my home district, farmers don't have a D or an R on their shirt. They don't say, I need that Democratic stuff in the Farm Bill. They say, I need more of those conservation programs, because in my state, only about 60% of the people who apply ever get them, and that's on a good day. And so much, as you've already heard around the country, in states like mine and others, these are tremendously oversubscribed programs, and the farmers love them. So we're here to fight for the programs that we know that farmers around the country, particularly small to medium-sized farmers, but all farmers take advantage of the conservation programs. So we are looking forward to negotiating the things that we care about in this bill. As you heard, this is from the Inflation Reduction Act, which was passed by Congress, and it was the most significant increase in investment in conservation programs. And we did that because we know that farmers are also the most impacted by the challenges of climate change. Farmers are the ones who are experiencing severe droughts, too much rain when you don't need it, not enough when you do need it, cold weather when you don't want it, hot weather when it's too hot. They are the ones who are having to deal with the impacts every day and making tougher and tougher to make those crops come through and to make a living on the farm. And so we wanted to be sure that when we dramatically increased the amount of money available for conservation funding, we put a priority on those programs that we knew would be best for conservation. You know, sometimes people want to demonize the farmer. They'll say, oh, well, you guys are the ones who are causing the problems about climate change. It's you who's doing all the bad practices. Well, I know, as a farmer myself, and as I've worked with many farmers, farmers are also the best partners we could possibly have. What we're talking about when we say the climate guardrails is we're talking about making a priority of those programs that help the farmers to do their best to be our partners in sequestering carbon, in using good practices on the farm. Sometimes it's no-till, sometimes it's cover crop. I happen to look it up because sometimes people, you know, they talk about climate guardrails and you're like, what in the world is that? Well, it's many, many pages of really great practices, even expanded from 23 into 24. These are practices that every farmer wants to use. Some of them are agroforestry, some of our cropland techniques, some of them are the things I talked about, no-till, cover crops, a whole variety of things that farmers are asking us for more of. And we're just saying, in a limited pool, when you can't get the programs out to everybody you need, make sure we're putting an emphasis on those things that will be most beneficial to the farmers in the long run, because these are the things that help to reduce climate change impact in farms all over the country. So we're very excited to keep that going. And one other thing I want to mention, and I know my colleagues will talk a little bit more about the programs and why they're so important. One of the things I want to mention is when we passed the IRA funding, and now are talking about adding that into the baseline of the bill, we are adding on to the programs that are already in there. So the conservation programs already have some funding. We're just trying to make it more. And the climate guardrails don't apply to any of that. So all of these programs that people are a little bit worried are going to disappear, they stay. They stay. And in fact, there will only be more money for the farmers applying for them because everybody else can go to the IRA program. It's a little bit wonky, but those of you in the room know why I'm saying this. This is one of the important things to remember. We care deeply about these programs. You're going to hear from farmers today who are going to remind us how important these programs are to them and why they help them to keep their farms going, help with the bottom line, and we want to make sure they stay intact in the Farm Bill. So as I said, we're here today to make sure everybody knows as we start this negotiation and debate, we want to keep a bipartisan Farm Bill. These things are very important to farmers around the country, and they're not telling us if they're D's or R's. They're just saying, make sure you keep those programs for us today. So I want to thank everybody for being here. I want to remind everybody this is a really important thing we're here to address today. We've got a lot of work ahead of us to get a Farm Bill done, and I'm looking forward to working with all of you, and thank you so much for coming to work with us.
Keep this moving a little bit. Thank you so much. And good morning, everyone. I'd like to thank my colleagues, Congresswoman Pingree and Schreier, as well as Earth Justice for bringing us together today for the press conference. It is really important, as you just heard from Congresswoman Pingree. Climate smart agriculture is oversubscribed right now. We are hearing from our growers and other critical investments in the upcoming Farm Bill. I'm also so pleased to be joined by so many of our BIPOC farmers who can speak to the positive impact that these investments have on their lives and livelihoods. My district is centered in Oregon's Willamette Valley, where farming agriculture is key to our economy and our way of life. Most of our growers are small family farms that produce specialty crops, things like blueberries, hazelnuts, Christmas trees, and wine grapes, of course. And as I'm sure some of the farmers who are with us here today understand, when you own a small family farm, you don't often have access to the same kinds of critical programs that some of the larger farms and crops enjoy. That means these growers are especially vulnerable to the costs incurred, as Congresswoman Pingree said, extreme heat and cold, droughts. We've seen so many wildfires and ice storms that have just ravaged and devastated our crops in Oregon, yet they aren't large enough to be able to take advantage of crop insurance or natural disaster assistance. Thankfully, the Inflation Reduction Act included historic funding to help these farmers adapt to our changing climate and put guardrails in place to ensure these investments are being used as intended. And it actually gives additional revenue streams for our growers, which is so important to make sure that our growers can continue to thrive, and it pencils out. The Farm Bill offers us the rare opportunity to build on the progress we've made, and I'm working hard to do just that. From reforming our crop insurance system to benefit specialty crop growers to incentivizing healthy soil and regenerative agricultural practices. These are the kinds of forward-thinking policies that we need. Yet, we keep seeing it from the other side of the aisle. The Republicans keep wanting to send us backwards. They're trying to remove some of these climate-smart protections, not to mention eliminating flexible disaster assistance funds for farmers and potentially cutting $30 billion in SNAP benefits. I keep saying we can do both. The climate crisis is here, but instead of addressing it, many of my colleagues are choosing to hurt our farmers and take food off the tables from my hungry veterans, kids, and seniors. And I know I speak for many of us here when I say that there is still time and we can and must do both. We can meet this critical moment and deliver a better planet for future generations while also ensuring our growers can stay resilient and profitable. I urge my colleagues on both sides of the aisle to set aside the rhetoric and come back to the negotiating table. We need a serious bipartisan bill. In fact, I believe it's the only way we can actually deliver the kind of transformational change that this moment requires. And with that, I will pass it over to my friend and colleague from the great state of Illinois, Congresswoman Nikki Budzinski.
Thank you so much to my friend, Congresswoman Salinas. Good morning. It's great to be with all of you today. Thank you for traveling to Washington. Very much appreciate that. I'm Nikki Budzinski, and I am proud to represent some of our nation's most productive farmland in central and southern Illinois. The Inflation Reduction Act, which you've heard a lot about already this morning, was a historic investment into our fight to protect our climate. And as one of the most important investment it made was to our nation's family farmers. Agriculture is the #1 economic driver in the state of Illinois. and that economy depends on the integrity of soil. Our family farmers know this better than anybody, and that's why they are the greatest stewards of our land. And by investing in climate-smart conservation, we are investing in them. Conservation programs at USDA are one of the few farm programs that are available to farms of all sizes, crops, livestock, and location. Because of this, USDA programs, conservation programs, are historically oversubscribed, something that has been mentioned this morning. Nearly half of all conservation applications are denied due to lack of sufficient funding. That's not due to lack of interest. That's not due to lack of need. That's due to lack of sufficient funding. The Inflation Reduction Act has helped us to address that. In Illinois, the Inflation Reduction Act funding for climate-smart conservation is particularly important. From 2018 to 2021 in the state of Illinois, Illinois benefited from more than $1 billion in Farm Bill conservation funding, the number 3 state in the nation in terms of conservation payments. This is critically important funding for our family farmers in central and southern Illinois. Our farmers need these resources in Illinois, but also across the country. While we still don't have House Farm Bill text, we know that the GOP Farm Bill proposal removes the critically important climate-smart guardrails from the Inflation Reduction Act funding, and this is a huge problem for many of us. The conservation practices on the climate-smart agriculture list all provide climate change mitigation benefits, either reduction in greenhouse gas emissions or an increase in carbon sequestration. And they are the programs most requested by our farmers. 6 out of 10 most popular practices in conservation are IRA eligible. And we know that these programs directly improve environmental outcomes for soil, water, and air. If we remove these guardrails, the IRA funding will no longer be properly directed to practices that are scientifically proven to improve environmental outcomes. I've been proud to stand with my colleagues to protect these conservation dollars and the guardrails that make them effective. I'll continue to do so as we continue to work, negotiate toward getting a successful bipartisan farm bill across the finish line. Thank you so much again for being here, and it is my honor right now to introduce Dr. Holmes, CEO and President of the Kansas Black Farmers Association. Thank you for being here.
Good morning, and just what a blessing to be here. Thank you, Representative, for the kind introduction and saying those things. My name is Johnella Holmes. I am the CEO and President of the Kansas Black Farmers Association. I'm proud to represent them, and it's an honor to be here. On Monday, I traveled. I won't talk about the 18 hours it took me to get here, but I traveled from my home in historic National Park, Nicodemus, Kansas. I mention this Nicodemus because it's a special history. I believe that the folks in D.C. shaping the Farm Bill can learn a lot from the way we do things. In 1877, my great-grandparents, my sister, Dr. Tammy Counts, is sitting there also, they migrated from Kentucky to Kansas for a better opportunity. They settled what became the township of historic Nicodemus, Kansas. They built an all-black farming community, the oldest of its kind west of the Mississippi River. From the very beginning, they practiced the sort of sustainability that agriculture that the United States desperately needs more of. Before regenerative was a cool word, we rotated our crops, which our indigenous brothers and sisters taught us to do. We rotate them, and we have summer fallow 1 year out of 3 rotations. We rest the land. We don't disturb our land with mechanized tilling because we know it erodes our land, making it more susceptible to drought and Northwest Kansas is in a drought zone. Through the IRA and other laws, the federal government has ramped up programs that support age-old sustainable practices. Now Congress can use the Farm Bill to make it easier for farmers to do the things the right way. For decades, Congress has taken a misguided approach to this legislation. I call it feed over food. That means focusing on massive factory farms that produce mainly livestock feed and raw materials for ultra-processed food, instead of smaller farms that grow food for actual people. Americans have paid dearly for this approach. We have degraded farmland, a rapidly changing climate, and poor health all around. I'm here today because we need to change course. We need more support for people growing food sustainably, including new farmers, female farmers, and socially disadvantaged farmers who want to purchase land. Instead of increasing subsidies for livestock feed, we could expand initiatives like the Increasing Land Capital and Marketing Access Program, which KBFA, Kansas Black Farmers Association, was just awarded an $8.4 million grant. We could also boast, We could also boast programs like climate hubs, regional research centers that provide irreplaceable insight into sustainable practices. Our closest hub, based in Colorado, assists in areas like soil testing or pesticide-free farming. That type of support is invaluable. The farmers I represent are fighting for a more sustainable future. They deserve all the support they can get. And we can't leave without a crop. I farm, you eat.
Thank you, Dr. Holmes. I'm delighted to bring up Devon Wilson, the founder of Sunlight Gardens in Battle Creek, Michigan.
Hello, everyone. Can we give it up one more time for Dr. Janella and her amazing work? I also want to say big thank you and shout out to Earth Justice for bringing urban farmers here to D.C. It's time we advocate for an equitable farm bill. My name is Devon Wilson, and I'm a first-generation farmer from Battle Creek, Michigan. I'm the founder and operator of Sunlight Gardens, and we are an urban organic farm. We're on 2 acres, and our mission is to increase access to local food and inspire the next generation of farmers. There's still a lot of work to do, but the impact that we've had in our city has been massive, and the fun that we've had along the way connecting people to the land has been epic. My journey did start when I was a child. Being a first-generation farmer, I had no connection with my food. I honestly did not even know that you put a seed in the dirt to grow a plant. My relationship with food is I would go to the grocery store and grab things off the shelves, right? I didn't know the effect that this was having on my loved ones and myself until I started to see my family members dealing with diet-related illnesses such as cancer and diabetes left and right. It never occurred to me how much our health had to do with what we were actually eating and how we can take control of our life by being able to grow our own food. Once I asked these questions and realized that nutrient-dense food could be a solution to the health problems I was seeing in my community, I began to explore how I could make a change in that. This is what led me into urban agriculture, and it truly has changed and shaped my life. Now I'm here advocating for better policies for families like mine so that we as a nation don't have to deal with these diet-related illnesses as we are today. Farms like Sunlight Gardens, while we may not be at the scale of the industrial agriculture that gets a lot of our lawmakers' attention, the impact that we have, again, is massive. And I believe it is the best investment to invest into urban agriculture. In Battle Creek, our produce is served at nonprofits, schools, restaurants, and we take pride in that. And for some people, we're their only option, and frankly, the only time they've experienced local and nutrient-dense food in their life. I have so many experiences where grown adults come to my farm and they are mind blown by seeing a cucumber growing on a vine. I want to share a quick story about some work that we did with our store. So 2 years ago, after we opened and started clearing our land, a major grocery store closed in our community. And this really sent shockwaves through our neighborhoods. Even though the grocery store was just relocated 8 miles away, people who don't have reliable transportation or the time to make it there were deeply impacted and were forced to look to corner stores and very low quality outlets to get their food. In response, Sunlight Gardens took action. We created a hybrid farm stand and a fresh corner store, basically utilizing what we've always been used to in our communities, right? The liquor store, the corner stores, but putting a fresh spin on it. The name of it is Pharmacy, where food is medicine. So we have organic produce, all sourced locally from Michigan, organic and healthy groceries, simple ingredients, snacks, and drinks. Just being honest, the way that we're doing things now is bad for our people and our planet. Over 650,000 people die each year from diet-related illnesses. Industrial agriculture plays a big part in that, and it also makes up over 10% of our greenhouse gas emissions. The truth is, we don't need more of this. We don't need more of the same. We need more operations like Sunlight Gardens and like all my amazing colleagues here doing urban farming in their respective states. Most representatives simply don't understand the importance of urban farms. They like to brush us off and act like we're not having the impact. And to that, I would like to invite them to my urban farm specifically to come see the change that we're making. I will say, I'm proud to say, our Michigan Senator Debbie Stabenow does not share that, and she is truly leading the way and has been a major advocate for urban agriculture and small farming in Michigan. I truly hope moving forward that our lawmakers follow Debbie Stabenow's lead, and I really just want to stress that this farm bill, it is an opportunity to move us in the right direction and be on the right side of history. We need to support our farmers who are feeding the communities in which they live. Our food choices, our health, and our soil quality depend on it. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Devon. I have to say, on top of being a very skilled farmer, he's also an incredible rapper, so you should check him out. I'd like to bring up Hana Ma'aia, the Food Systems Manager at Soul Fire Farm in New York.
Good morning. My name is Hana Ma'aia, and I'm currently the Food Systems Manager at Soul Fire Farm in Petersburg, New York. Thank you for hearing our stories today. As a farmer, beekeeper, an educator, and a Palestinian Jordanian American, I subscribe to the philosophy that land is life. That's why I'm here to advocate today for a climate resilient farm bill. Lawmakers face a fundamental problem. The way we currently grow food is destroying our ability to grow food. The way we grow food is also killing us. Over a decade ago, I realized working as an EMT that our environments and our diets make us sick. I found myself gravitating towards the food system and eventually started farming. First at an organic farm in Oregon, then at an urban farm in Birmingham, Alabama, and now in rural upstate New York at Soulfire Farm. At Soulfire, we run a no-cost doorstep delivery CSA that feeds community members who live in food deserts, or more accurately, food apartheid. We hold trainings to encourage the next generation of farmers, and we advocate for changes in policy. Too often, our voices are missing from policy discussions. But today, we get to hear from actual farmers and land stewards. That's exciting. So let me share with you how last year went. Our farm team had to wear N95 masks while harvesting our crops due to wildfire smoke in Nova Scotia. When we planted corn in June, it suffered from a freak storm with nickel-sized hail. Record-breaking rainfall washed away whole acres of our neighbors' farmland. And unprecedented pest outbreaks, like the cabbage maggot, wiped out a fifth of the brassicas that we planted. That is the biggest plant family on our plates. This all happened in one farming season. This is urgent. Farmers need a climate-resilient farm bill that supports our farmers and our earth. I came from the fields to the Capitol to urge Congress to ensure that 100% of the $20 billion in the Inflation Reduction Act is allocated for USDA conservation programs and climate sideboards. As Dr. Holmes mentioned, funding should support basic practices and traditional ecological knowledge from the original stewards of this land. As a Palestinian, I am deeply honored to be able to tend to land in this country in ecologically restorative ways. It is an act of love, it is an act of care, and it is an act of resilience. This is why we need a climate-resilient, farmer-focused bill that recognizes the fact that land is life. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Hannah, for your brilliant words. Last but definitely not least, I'd like to bring up Nika Forte from Heart and Soul People's Garden in Arizona.
Hi. Is it hot in here or just the beast? So, good morning, everybody. I am Nika Forte, and I'm an urban farmer and beekeeper in Phoenix, Arizona. In 2022, I founded Heart and Soul People's Garden, and along with Local First Arizona in Phoenix, Arizona. It's since blossomed to a dynamic hub that brings together local residents, businesses, and organizations with a shared commitment to our community. Our Heart and Soil, we transformed an urban space into a source of sustenance and education for our community. I am also the founder of ABC Mobile and Bayhive Beekeeping Program for Women. The beekeeping program empowers women and people of color in the Phoenix area. We use the art of beekeeping and agriculture as a pathway to entrepreneurship, self-sustainability, and along with environmental awareness. I am also a fifth-generation woman farmer. I actually did not know this when I started farming, as my mother decided that she was never going to talk about farming and never told us about it. I am here today to talk about what the Farm Bill means for communities like mine. Too often we focus only on SNAP or subsidies for factory farms, but this piece of legislation is crucial to us as well. The Inflation Reduction Act provisions, the Environmental Quality Incentives Program, and the Office of Urban Agriculture are vital to the continuation and expansion of our efforts. The funding from these incentives has been instrumental. It supports infrastructure that facilitates sustainable agriculture within the city, such as systems for water efficiency and waste reduction. Maintaining or increasing these funds is crucial. It ensures the urban agriculture projects like ours can continue to grow and serve our community, providing not just food, but also education and job opportunities in sustainable industries. Our projects are about more than just growing food. We turn underserved urban areas into productive gardens. We provide essential fresh produce to the homeless and food insecure families in the valley. We enhance urban biodiversity and contribute to the environmental health of our community. In other words, our impact is far greater than our yield. The Farm Bill needs to recognize that and take us into account. Additional support would allow us to accelerate our work, reach even more people who badly need fresh food and opportunities we provide. We can expand urban farm agriculture sites, transforming more city spaces into green areas that serve as community hubs and learning centers. We can create more education programs and sustainable practices, ensuring that urban residents understand and can engage in food production. Finally, we could increase accessibility to fresh, healthy food for those living in the Phoenix area, food deserts, directly tackling the challenges of food insecurity. I want to thank the lawmakers here today who are standing up for urban farmers and the communities we serve. We may be small in size, but for pound, we are the best investment in American agriculture. So I invite all of you to join us in planting seeds of hope and creating a buzz around the urban ag need.
Can I please have all the farmers join me up on stage, including Representative Pingree, please? Can we please have another round of applause for all of our speakers? Thank you to SEEC, and thank you to the leadership from Congresswoman Pingree and Schreier. We're open to Q&A.
Let me just wrap this up and thank everybody again. Really appreciate all of your thoughtful words and important perspective on all this. It's just a reminder, in Congress, because we negotiate the Farm Bill in the Agriculture Committee, and we kind of get all, mixed up in which title are we in, and is this baseline funding, and all the kind of wonky part of it. I think at times we forget this is America's Farm Bill. This isn't about a region of the country. This isn't about a certain commodity. Everybody in America has something at stake, and I really appreciate the urban farmers who are also joining us today, because, often people talk about the Farm Bill as being this sort of pact between the farmers out there in the country and the eaters in the urban area. And while urban areas are about eaters, they're also about farmers too. They're about delivering healthy foods. They're about taking better care of the environment in our urban areas, where we want to make sure that we deal with the climate change impact there as well. And so we've just had an example of really some wonderful people doing great work, talking about the fundamentals of why the Farm Bill is so important to everyone, why we need to get everybody healthy food, why everyone has to have access to fresh and healthy produce, and why we have to support all the people trying to make a living at being farmers today. So I'm really proud to stand here with all of you. We've got a lot of work ahead of us, but you've really brought some important impact, and thank you for coming here to fight for our Farm Bill.